if you're going to, because what the UFC likes to do is they like to make common opponents for a lot of these guys as far as their own, kind of war room ladder they kind of build to the top. And when guys have common opponents, even though MMA math, as we all know, does not make any sense and never will make any sense in its own capacity, it's a good way to kind of gauge where guys are and if they're ready for certain tests. And where I'm leading into by saying all of that is obviously the common Wonder Boy matchup. And Wonder Boy, we've clearly seen enough of Woodley and Wonder Boy. We have 10 rounds of a sample size of it, as a matter of fact. And what I learned in kind of dissecting the comparison between Till going 5 rounds with Wonder Boy and Woodley's 10 is that a lot of people are really gauging this matchup as if it's going to be similar, and I don't agree with it. I think Till, in comparison to Wonder Boy, sure, like the dimensions of his body are kind of similar, but Till isn't exactly more of a counter striker, even though he can counter strike. He's more of a pressure fighter. He's going to want to get in guys' face, and he's going to want to press the action, which he could not depict against Wonder Boy. I mean, if you go and press the action against Wonder Boy, there's a great chance you're going to get caught. So all of that being said, I think that Tyron Woodley is going to obviously have the grappling advantage. I don't think it takes really a whole lot of thinking to make that assessment. And who has the power advantage is a really interesting conversation to have, because Darren Till with his size obviously has a whole lot of power, but Tyron Woodley has been known for years as one of the most powerful punchers in the division, especially when he loads up and fires that right hand.
Yeah, I mean, I think Tyron Woodley, he's got that power advantage. I mean, if we're looking at Darren Till, 17-0-1. He's been 5-0-1 since he joined the UFC. He got that draw against Nicholas Dalby. He was actually able to get his first win back in Cage Warriors this past weekend, which was something to see if you missed it.
I did.
Yeah, like as far as the fight goes, I think a lot of people think it's going to be a counter-striking matchup, myself included, for a host of reasons. I mean, if we're looking at Darren Till, he fought Cerrone. The only way to beat Cerrone is if you back him up into a corner. He's not good when he's backing up. He got the win there. So good for Darren Till. I mean, going up against Thompson, there's so many different weapons, so many different things he can throw at you that, yeah, it made sense for Darren Till to counter-strike. Now, we've seen Tyron Woodley be tentative in his last fights, but it's a smart type of tentative. So I think in this fight, what he's going to do, like he said, match. If you go really into it, I mean, he's definitely got the extra edge. Former Division I All-American with Mizzou.
Yep.
So he's got that prowess. He's got way higher accuracy and takedown averages. And I mean, as far as the striking's concerned, and if you don't want to get into the metrics, that's fine. But as far as the metrics are concerned between those two guys, and there's a big enough sample size with Till's 6 fights in the UFC and Woodley's countless fights in the UFC. I mean, he's been in for a long time. Their striking metrics are actually pretty similar. So you got to kind of take that as it is. But Woodley, obviously, with a huge grappling advantage, and I think that's what he's going to use. And if he lays on Darren Till for 5 rounds, so be it. But Till, I was on this train for the longest time. You know, he moved to Brazil. What did he learn for jiu-jitsu? But in all the research I've done for this fight in specific, and I've gone deep into it, I haven't seen much of a Brazilian jiu-jitsu background in him. I've seen more of a Muay Thai, and that's kind of what he trained when he was in Brazil. And he had amateur fights and professional fights, and he went 12-0 and had 8 fights in 2013. But I'm still kind of worried, is there a Brazilian jiu-jitsu background? Because I haven't seen him work on it. And if there's not, then advantage Woodley.
Definitely. And, you know, up until the Cerrone fight, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the only finish that he had, to his credit, I forget the guy's name. I think it was Oliveira. When he finished on top and half guard with elbows, in his debut. I'm pulling up that track record right now just to make sure my facts are straight. And the name of the guy was Wendell Oliveira. So what I've seen as far as his ground game is concerned is, obviously there's no reason for Till to want to be operating or try to have any type, as far as his game is concerned so far, of attacks off his back. He is going to want to really use his size and kind of like the girth of his strength with that absolutely huge frame for a welterweight, and try to execute in top position if it does get to that, if it does come to that point. But as far as being able to attack off his back and maybe passing guard and doing all of the things that, you know, someone well-versed in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu would be, yeah, I got to say that I'm in agreement with you. I haven't seen a whole lot I think he only has one win by submission to his name.
One by, it was inverted triangle choke, and the other one by toe hold. The old Frank Mir Tank Abbott toe hold.
That's interesting. Yeah, I'm seeing that right. I'm seeing that right here. 2 out of 3 wins on the Brazilian circuit. The rise of Darren Till has also been incredibly rapid, and obviously a guy that makes sense to push, being that he's outspoken, he's confident, he walks around like he knows he's the best in the world. And all of that being said, that needs to be something that a guy that needs to become a world champion needs to hold himself to that distinction. The consensus view here is, you know, what is going to be Tyron Woodley's game plan? Is he going to try to take him down? My instinct says yes, but people differ with it on me. What do you think Tyron Woodley's game plan is offensively?
So we're talking Darren Till, a guy who's been training at Extreme Couture. I don't know who he would have for, you know, training partners. I mean, we know Keith Lee and Kevin Lee train there. Ryan Couture trains there, kind of, I guess, size-wise, maybe somebody that he could train with, but he'd want to have somebody like a good wrestler to train with. As far as Tyron Woodley's concerned, with Rufus Sport, I'm sure, you know, where he's a champion, he could bring in anybody to train with, and I'm sure he's going to be well-versed on the ground. I think that's going to be the game plan. I think it's going to be maybe the first round could go where they just try and wait each other out, gauge distance. But for Woodley to win, yeah, he's definitely going to have to take it to the ground. And for Till to win, I don't know. I mean, does he point fight? Does he try and back Woodley up? Even when Woodley gets backed up, I mean, he's got a strong right overhand. He did have that major shoulder surgery, arthroscopic shoulder surgery back in December of last year. And, you know, in the UFC countdown that came out yesterday, had a look into it, and they kind of showed him getting acupuncture and whatnot. So I know he's still recovering it, but I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. I don't think it's going to affect his punching power that much. I was putting a lot of stock into it the last month or so, but I think Woodley's going to be all right. And I do think he's going to get it based on the takedowns.
As far as Darren Till is concerned, if he does end up taking the belt from Colby Covington, he's made it very apparent that he is not going to be around at welterweight forever. If you make the assumption, and obviously this is just hypothetically speaking, and could end up not becoming true, if Darren Till does win, and let's just assume that he's going to keep winning, obviously that might not come to fruition, but if he is to keep winning, how many times can he defend the welterweight belt before he says, you know what, enough is enough, I got to go up to 185?
So he said, you know, with members of the press last week after his training session, that he wants to win the belt, defend it once, and then move up to middleweight. And he's already called out an opponent. He wants to fight Yoel Romero, who I was under the assumption Yoel Romero was moving up to light heavyweight, but apparently that's not going to happen. So yeah, I think he's going to defend it once. Who he fights, I don't know. It depends. I mean, you look at that division, and I talk about it all the time on my shows. It's so deep. You've got a lot of great fighters. I mean, I was singing the praises of Warley Alves, who ended up losing to James Krause at UFC Lincoln. But I mean, that's one of the guys I watch. Vicente Luque, among others. So there's always a deep, you know, pool of talent. But yeah, I can only see him defending it once, and I don't know who that opponent could be. I would hope, you know, Colby Covington or maybe even Usman. But do you give Woodley another shot? I mean, he's defended it multiple times, so I don't know.
I don't think they'll give it to him right away. I think especially with how sour the recent history of the interim championship has become. You know, if you look at the last few, obviously, Covington did not get a title unification bout. Ferguson did not get a title unification bout. Whitaker did not get a title unification bout. And Romero, I guess, would have, but he missed weight.
Yeah.
So all of that being said, it will really put another dampening kind of touch on how interim titles are going to be viewed by the general public going forward, which is already not, you know, everyone's favorite topic. I think you got to give it to Covington if you want to save any type of face of that at all. Now, if you as the UFC want to continue to put no importance on interim titles whatsoever, then I mean, maybe give him a rematch. Obviously, depending on how the fight goes. If Till starches him, I don't know if that will come to fruition right away. But all of that being said, my first initial thought would be Colby. Do you agree, or do you think that maybe Colby has to fight one more time, or if Till starches Woodley, you don't think Woodley would get an immediate rematch, do you?
No, I mean, I think Covington deserves a shot after all. I think realistically it made more sense to wait for Colby Covington to return from the nasal surgery or whatever it is that he's got going on. But I mean, since losing to Warley Alves, who again, I'm so high on him, still am, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-fight win streak. He beat Stun Gun, who was a ranked opponent up until this week, I believe. Curtis Millender popping up in the top 15. And he hadn't fought since that fight, which, you know, I've questioned the rankings a number of times, and that's one of my guys. Damian Maia, that was a convincing win, and then the win over RDA, who a lot of people had RDA in that fight. So, yeah, I think Covington deserves a shot. I pulled up the rankings again, so you get Till at 2, RDA on a loss, Thompson on a loss, Lawler, whose last fight was last December at UFC Fight Night in Winnipeg, and then you got Usman, Maia, Magny, Masvidal. And I mean, we talk about rankings and how good the division is, but there's a lot of stagnant fighters in there. I mean, you've even got Gunnar Nelson at 13, and when was the last time he fought? I believe it was the Ponzinibbio fight. So
that's correct.
It's yeah, it is a good division. The rankings don't make a whole lot of sense, but to answer your question, yeah, I think Colby Covington does deserve the shot against the winner, whether it's Till or Woodley.